into the boards at the end.
So now it'll just be sooner than later.
Yeah, so well, I mean, there's going to be no wall to crash into, is what the experiment is, okay? Because you're bringing that face, or you're bringing that imaginary line now. You're bringing that imaginary line about 20 feet up.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So
That's
uh,
ridiculous. Come on, it's hockey for Jiminy Cricket's sakes.
it's hockey, but I mean, you, Jeff, you remember years ago, hockey was very much a part of the sport. And I'm certainly one of those guys that enjoys a good fight just like anybody else. But you know what? We're not looking for it as much anymore because too many players are getting hurt. And in last night's game, George Peros ended up getting hurt. The Montreal Canadiens feel that they were bounced from the postseason last year because they could not compete physically with the Ottawa Senators. They felt like they were being out hit and really out muscled for the puck, and that's why they lost that series. In the offseason, one of their key acquisitions is George Peros, and he came from out west. And I'm sure that you've seen the man with the big mustache. Everybody talks about Peros and his mustache. But he was brought in by the Montreal Canadiens to add some size and some the ability
Mm-hmm.
to be able to drop the mitts and drop the player that they're fighting against. He had off-season shoulder surgery, but he ended up getting into two fights last night in the home opener for the Montreal Canadiens. The sad thing is that in the second fight that he had, two players went down, and somehow I look at the replay, and it's almost comical in how it happened, but of course it turns into a very serious situation. George Peros came over top of Colton Orr, and as he came down, he couldn't get his hands out in time, and he nailed his chin on the ice. He knocked himself out cold. He is out of the hospital, which is the good news, but he got carried out of the game on a stretcher. This is on opening night in the very first game of the new season, and he's knocked out cold, carried off on a stretcher, taken to the hospital. He's now out of the hospital, but he's also out of the lineup with a concussion.
Yeah, he'll be out of the lineup for a couple of days. You think?
Well, you know what? He's starting to get up there a little bit in age as well. And the thing is that it's going to be a while before I think he comes back into the game. If you go to NHL.com, you can see the video and you can interpret it any way that you want. But the bottom line is that it wasn't the fight that caused the concussion. It was falling on the ice and hitting your face against the ice, your chin against the bottom line is that particular situation or scenario played out because of a fight.
Right.
And so now, of course, the talk is back on, and it's only day one, but the talk is back on. Should more be done to take the fighting out of the game, the hockey game?
Oh, stop it already! Fighting is part of the hockey game.
And that's the argument, and that's the
Yep, it
honest to
is.
goodness argument is that if you take fighting out, you take out accountability.
If you take
Um,
fighting out of the game, just take off the freaking helmets and pads.
Well, again, I mean, these pads, this equipment that's designed to protect these players, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they skate harder. There's bigger collisions. They need that, but they're putting on armor underneath that jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the armor that's causing a lot of the grief in hits and checks to the head and whatnot. But certainly no helmet and no shoulder pad was going to save George Peros last night. He hit chin first. And by
Wow.
the way, visors are mandatory this year.
Are they really?
Yeah.
See, they're starting to. They're gonna. They're. You know what? NHL is doing what the NFL's doing, turning it into flag football.
Well, you know what? I was just going to say that I'm wondering if they're trying to, this political correctness, and I know where you're coming from, Jeff, and maybe I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, but you look at that lawsuit that the NFL had, and I know that the NHL does not want to go through the same thing. And there has been a couple of deaths that have been documented in the media as being a direct result of players that have had to fight. If you want a recent look up the name Derek Bugard. Derek Bugard was suffering from so many head injuries that he had to take medication, and he took too much medication, and it ended up leading to his demise.
That's crazy.
I know. And it's how much longer before there's a lawsuit? In a politically correct world that we live in now, how much longer before you think that there's going to be a
No, there's
lawsuit in
going
the
to be.
NHL? There's already one in the NFL, already one that's been settled in the NFL. You know that it's going to start coming for these other sports as well.
Oh, yeah. Probably the only two sports you won't get them is basketball and baseball.
Yeah, true.
But football and hockey will be coming down the pike pretty soon. A couple more years, you'll get the old veterans.
Get a
calling.
couple of more batters that are being beamed by the pitcher, and I bet you anything that somebody's going to start a lawsuit.
Yeah, but most of the pitchers that hit batters don't get hit in the head as much. It's mostly it's mostly butt, arm, back, leg, shoulder, elbow, wrist. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not really head shots in Major League Baseball, but I understand where you're coming from. But to me, that they're just taking the game out of the hockey. That's what they're really doing. They're taking the game out of the
And I mean, I have no problem with physical play. The BC Hockey League, which is where the Spruce Kings played, you talked about them a few minutes ago. We have a fight rule. You're allowed to have, as a player, you're allowed to have 5 fights through the season. If you start going above 5 fights in a season, you start getting fined and you start getting game suspensions.
Wow.
They are trying to get fighting out of the game.
5 fights.
Yeah, they're trying to abolish it. Yep.
Right. Hey, Ron, thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it, buddy.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me again.
You got it. We'll talk to you next week sometime.
You bet, bud.
See you, Ron.
There goes our good friend Ron Geller, our hockey guru here at Sports World Radio. How about that? It was a good little segment, right?
Yeah, and Jeff, just since we have a quick little minute, tomorrow on the NFL Network, we got Buffalo playing Cleveland. I believe I'm going to take oh, boy. I might switch my pick from Buffalo to Cleveland. I can't believe I'm saying it, but the Browns are playing pretty good football
I'm picking Cleveland
right now.
in this game. I'm going to take Cleveland in this game, I think. I got to go check my picks to make sure, but I think
I'm going to check my picks, too.
I think I'm going to take Cleveland.
Gio, who you taking tomorrow between Buffalo and Cleveland tomorrow?
I think I'm going to take Cleveland. I think that's
Week 5 already.
Yeah,
Good
I know.
Lord.
Can you believe that? It's unbelievable.
And our picks are, hopefully my pick'em's doing better, but I know I struggled a bit last week in week 4.
I know, it's going to be interesting. Hey, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us today. Our show here at Sports World Radio. We'll be back tomorrow for another edition of Sports World Radio. That is Sean Mann. I am Jeff Escow. This has been Sports World Radio. Until tomorrow, my remember, you only have one life to live it. Long live strong and live proud. And please don't forget, life may suck, but the alternative is unacceptable. Peace out, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Hey, boy, Stimpy. We sure had fun today, didn't we? So long, kids. Come on, Stimpy, say goodbye.
Where are we going?
The show's over. See you next time.
Next time? When's that?
Pretty soon. Don't worry.
Pretty soon?